Ian, thank you so much for talking to us today. Really appreciate it. So you've been a donor of this sponsorship programme since 2005, with obviously 58 students being awarded, all thanks to yourself. You gave so much time to read these submissions and critique them as well. So in terms of the scholarship, what impact do you think or you hope that it has on the recipients?
Well, I got into the writing game by winning prizes or coming runner-up in prizes. So from the time I was at my last year at high school, I was putting poems and short stories into competitions, and more often than not getting a rejection letter. But when you didn't get a rejection letter, when you got second prize or occasionally first prize, it just gives you that wee bounce.
Yeah.
What you want when you're starting off in this game is you want somebody to say, good, keep going. You know, the stuff you're doing is good stuff. And if you're not showing your work to anybody, I mean, I never showed it. My parents didn't know I was sitting writing poems, sitting in my bedroom in Cardenden. In fact, the first inkling I got was when I was in the Courier newspaper, having won second prize in a poetry competition. So I think it just gives you that wee bit of, yeah, okay, maybe I'm actually quite good at this. Yeah. So it's the encouragement is very important. And of course the cash helps as well.
Definitely. You provided a lot of specific feedback for a number of pieces this year. What stood out for you about the overall quality of the submissions and the themes of the submissions this year?
The shortlisted pieces that I got sent, I mean, I could see themes emerging from them, which I think possibly were to do with us coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
There was a lot of them were quite elegiac. They were about loss, they were about memory, they were about personal things that had happened, about losing loved ones, or about just losing people full stop. There was a very powerful short story set during World War I that, you know, just really, really hit hard with me. But there was that, I could see that theme emerging. They were hopeful, they were looking to the future. They were saying, don't forget the past, but please always keep looking forward.
Yeah.
There are brighter, sunlit uplands ahead. Yeah. So there was that. So I think that was the main theme I saw. I don't read that many of them. There's a team here who go through them. And because I said, look, I've not got time. I've genuinely not got time to read 50 or 60 entries. Yeah. If you can whittle it down to maybe under a dozen, I'll be happy. Yeah. But I always enjoy reading them. I do always enjoy reading them. Bits of poetry, drama, short stories. You get a variety every year. Every year I get surprised, and I think that's possibly one of the things I'm looking for is an element of surprise, something I've not seen before.
Yeah. So you received a lot of applicants from HMP learners for the first time this year, with one of the winners actually producing a beautiful piece called My African Baptism Story. So how important do you think that cultural narratives and traditions are in storytelling?
Yeah, that was an extraordinary story. It was a sort of tribal custom that was just laid out very vividly on the page as though it had happened to the writer. I'm not sure that it had, having heard from people that work at HMP Glenacle. But it was powerful and it was vivid and it felt like lived experience. And one of the secrets of great storytelling is to persuade the reader this is lived experience. Yeah. You are now living it. I lived it and now you are living it, even if it's completely fictitious. Yeah. You can write a story set in the future on a planet that doesn't exist. If you can persuade the reader that this is real, then you've won them over and you've got them, and then you can do anything you want and they go along for the ride. So that was great. I was really chuffed this year that Fife College had got applicants coming from the prison sector in Scotland, because Fife College does a lot of work in prisons in Scotland, and I didn't realise that creative writing could be part of that. And I think it's very useful for prisoners to have access to a means of expressing themselves and doing something creative. And hopefully they will keep going, because there was some very good writing in amongst that.
You critiqued Warbird by Aaron Cuthbert, and you mentioned the vivid and visceral depiction of the battlefield. What other elements actually stood out for you in this piece of writing?
Aaron's piece had I mean, it's basically a British squaddy, and everybody's being cut down around him. And he sees a German soldier who's still alive in the middle of no man's land, and he decides he's going to help him. And it's that pulls the rug out from under you. The enemy suddenly is not your friend per se, but you see them as a human being. They're no longer just a thing that has to be eradicated. They're a suffering human being, much the same as you. So that humanity I thought was extraordinary. That moment when he sort of crawls over to help somebody who is the enemy, I thought was extraordinary. I thought it was a really powerful piece.
Yeah.
And vivid, you were there. You were with him as he's crawling across that no man's land.
Impressive. How do you see this scholarship programme evolving in the future? And what are your hopes for the continued influence on young writers and learners of this scholarship?
I mean, young writers need all the help they can get, all the encouragement they can get. I say young writers who are starting out. It could be any age, but starting out on this journey. I mean, this gives them a bit of financial support, obviously, but also it just is somebody saying, look, this is good. Yeah. Because as a writer, you're sitting in a room on your own, writing this stuff down. You've got no idea if it's any good or not. It's only when you show it to someone and they go, oh yeah, I liked that, that it gives you the kind of a little bit of buzz, and you think, okay, I'll keep writing. And everybody needs that at some point. Everybody needs that affirmation at some point in their life, at some point in their journey through life. So yeah, that's what I hope. And we're going to, next year is the 20th anniversary. So hopefully some very big plans afoot. But
here's hoping.
Not allowed to say.
Well, the scholarship certainly brings about the buzz. You've heard it since the applications came up. There's a lot of people in the college talking about stories they're writing and things they're doing that they would never do before. I wrote a book myself and I went the self-publishing route. Would you encourage people to go self-publishing? Obviously there's not as much quality control and actual promotion with it, but would you push them towards traditional publishing or self-publishing?
I mean, I'm such an old timer now. You know, when I started in this business, there was only traditional publishing. That's all there was. Self-publishing barely existed. Now you've got major players like Amazon. You can put your stuff online. You can put it online for free, and you can get as many readers as you like. How you make a living out of that, of course, is the tough one. How you monetize your work when people start to get used to getting it for nothing is a tough one. But there are definitely avenues around now that didn't exist when I was young, starting out in this game. And I wouldn't say no to self-publishing. I wouldn't say no to e-publishing. If you've got a story you think is worth telling and you think there's going to be an audience for it, get it out there. Whichever means you think works for you, get it out there. And I know a number of people who started off self-publishing e-books only via Amazon and now have traditional publishing deals. Because publishers, you know, mainstream publishers are looking for new talent. And they see these people publishing online and getting lots of readers and obviously have something worth saying.
Yeah.
And so they go looking for them. So, you know, never say no to anything. Anything that gets your work out there is worth doing.
Well, I have to ask about Rebus. You've got the new series out now. I discovered Rebus as Ken Stott. And when I read the books, it was Ken Stott that I pictured in my head. I watched the new series of Rebus and I really didn't know how I would take Richard Rankin, but I read the Falls afterwards. I completed the series in a oneer. It was brilliant. But Richard Rankin suddenly became Rebus in my head when I read the book. As the executive producer, did you have a big say in the casting of Richard? I
didn't get any say in the casting of Richard as far as I remember. All I knew was that the screenwriter, my good friend Gregory Burke, a Fifer like me, working class boy like me, his first play was called Gagarin Way, which is a real street in Lumfinnins. I used to go past it every day on my way to school in Cowdenbeath. He was very keen to work with Richard. He'd worked with him on his play Black Watch. In fact, several of the actors, Rebus's brother Michael is played by another actor who was in Black Watch. So Greg Burke knows these actors and he knows who would be good for this role. I think it was his idea that we have a younger Rebus, but set it in the present day so that we could talk about the issues we are interested in, to do with politics, to do with society, to do with those who have and those who have not, the way that Scotland has changed. We want to talk about the now, the here and now, but do it with a younger, feistier Rebus who can get into a fight, basically. The Rebus I write about these days is 70 years old and cannot get in a fight without losing. Richard Rankin, you can get him in a brawl. He's a much more intimidating figure than the Rebus I write about. And we knew that fans would maybe have an issue early on trying to put these two together, because the stories in this TV show are taken from old books and newer books, books from the very beginning of the series and books from later on. But at its heart, it's about Scotland, it's about this conflicted guy, this complex character, it's about his complex family relationships. And in the middle of it all, there is an element of the whodunit or an element of criminal activity. But it's a moral story. It's a story of moral decisions that people take and then might end up regretting.
Along with Rebus in the books makes an awful lot of music references. There's quite a few I pick up on, and I'm like him. I'm kind of annoyed when people don't pick up on what he's talking about when he quotes something. I take it you've got a big vinyl collection at home?
I've got a big vinyl collection, and one of the things I get complaints about now with the TV show being on is there's not enough music. Again, I think it was Gregory Burke who decided just to annoy me that the Rebus on the TV shows would not be a music fan the way that the Rebus in the books is. There's a nice joke in episode 1 where there's a guy called Mick Jagger, MC Jagger, Mick Jagger, and Siobhan Clarke managed to say to him, you know, hope you get some satisfaction. But that's about it as far as I can remember. But yeah, I do. I mean, like a lot of writers I know, I'm a failed rock star. I'd much rather have been a rock star than a writer, but I just wasn't any good at it. I had to go twice. I had to go when I was a teenager, living in Cardendale. I was in a punk band called the Dancing Pigs.
Nice name.
Good name, I think. And then just a few years ago, I joined a band called Best Picture, but COVID did for us. So that's it. I've had 2 goes at it, and neither of them has worked out. So I've got to just put a lot of music into my books, which is great because it means a lot of musicians have become fans of the books.
Are you still with Best Picture?
Best Picture, I saw the drummer last night. I think we're in abeyance, really, because our keyboard player left to join another band, our bass player moved to London, one of the guitarists moved over to Glasgow. There's just me and the drummer left in Edinburgh. I mean, unless we recreate the White Stripes, which would mean me learning to play guitar, we have no future at all.
Because we were listening to your single with The Lecturer.
Wow.
And it's very good, it sticks in your head.
Isabel, yeah, it was my mum's name. So that was when we formed the band, all I wanted was to make a single. I thought I'd be really happy if I've got a single, a physical thing that I can give to people. And we made a single, and we played some gigs, even played at a festival in England. We had fun. But I would never say I was a singer. I'm a vocalist. I've not got a singing voice. Couldn't sing to save my life.
You did surprise me.
In the studio, there's a lot they can do in the studio to make a non-singer sound like a singer.
I thought come Rebus season 2 is going to walk into a pub and there you are at the back. That would be your cameo.
Well, you know what? I was meant to have a cameo in season 1 and they forgot about me. They invited me down to the Oxford Bar. They were filming at the Oxford Bar, and I sat in the back room with all the extras. And then I noticed everybody had gone. And I said to the barman, "Where's everybody gone?" He went, "Well, they finished for the day." And I went, "Well, I was meant to have a cameo." And he went, "Well, they must have forgotten about you." And indeed, they had forgotten about me. So I've got a cameo in the John Hannahs, and I've got a cameo in the Ken Stotts, but I do not have a cameo in the Richard Rankins.
So that's your excuse for season 2.
That's why we need to BBC, if you're listening, season 2, please.
And that ending.
Open ending, yeah.
That was just cruel.
Yeah, keep them wanting more. Keep them wanting more.
So, as an author, when you're reading other people's work, if you get time to read other people's work, do you have a go-to book? I mean, I'll revisit Stephen King or 39 Steps or Hitchhiker's Guide or something that I've read a million times. Do you have a go-to book that you'll just pick up for the sake of it?
Yeah, there are books that I reread fairly regularly. There's a series of books, 12 of them, and the series is called A Dance to the Music of Time, and it's by a posh English author called Anthony Powell. And I was given the first 3 of them as a birthday present when I was a student. And I love them. It's like a guy's life. He's a writer, and it's his life from when he's at school until he's an old man. And the characters who appear and disappear in your life, that's the dance. As you go through your life, there are people who reappear at some point. I just thought it was, for someone who was starting to think about writing a series of books with one character, I thought it's a really interesting tutorial to have. So I do that a lot. I read Alistair MacLean's Where Eagles Dare, which I read when I was a kid. I read that every few years. Gilly Cooper's Rivals, I'm a huge fan, and I reread that every now and again. Jekyll and Hyde, Miss Jean Brodie, I reread fairly regularly. And Bleak House by Charles Dickens, I read probably every decade. But I do like finding new stuff. But the problem is, if you know you're going to enjoy a book, why wouldn't you read that book as opposed to the book you might not enjoy? The reason I listen to a lot of old records. I buy a lot of new records, but most of them you end up listening to them twice.
So he's talking about your go-to book. What's your go-to album?
It depends how I'm feeling. Usually it'd be John Martin's Solitaire,
right,
which I first heard when I was at high school. Huge fan. Sometimes it's the Stones, Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed, a bit of Hawkwind. When I'm writing, it tends to be ambient electronica. So I go a lot to Brian Eno's Music for Airports.
So you find it quite inspirational when you're writing is to listen to
It's
music?
not an inspirational thing.
Right.
It's
motivational?
It's blocking out the real world.
Right, okay.
It's just creating a wee bubble, which is why it has to be instrumental. And I've got it on very low. I'm not really listening to it. It's just creating a bubble. The outside world has ceased to exist. There's now just me and the story. And the kind of chilled out music is part of that atmosphere that I need to write a book. When I was young, I thought to write an exciting car chase, you need to put fast music on. It doesn't work like that. Your imagination does all the work. Not the music, not the background music, your imagination.
I've spoken to a few writers, a few crime writers for a podcast I'm doing at the college. Had a wee word with Lee Child with his Reacher books, and I discovered an author in Stirling, AJ Liddell, and JD Kirk, who's also doing crime writing for another Scottish detective. I've spoken to them all about collaborations. Obviously Lee Child, he's working with his brother now, he's looking at retiring and handing over to his brother. On the collaboration side, you finished off one of the Laidlaw books. It was a prequel to the Laidlaw series. I mean, taking on Laidlaw, obviously you're a huge writer yourself and really talented. Did you jump at the chance of doing it, or was there a lot of soul searching to see if you could take over? Because your style changes. You've taken over that Laidlaw style and really done well with it.
Well, when I was contacted by William McIlvanney's publisher, they said, look, Willie, when he died, left a couple of 100 pages of notes for a book. His widow wants you to take a look at it and see if there's a novel in there that can be salvaged, rescued. And I thought, well, I'll have a look, but no promises.
Yeah.
And it was a huge thing to take on, but it was the middle of lockdown. And I had nothing else to do. So if they had caught me at a time when it wasn't lockdown, I might have said no. But in lockdown, I said yes. And the first thing that was difficult was to get the voice, because the voice of the Laidlaw books is very different, very poetical as compared to the Rebus novels. They're set in Glasgow, a city I don't really know. And this book was going to be set in 1972. I was 12 years old, living in Cardenden. So that made it difficult. But I thought I'll give it a go, and I reread the Laidlaw book several times to try and capture the rhythms, the intonation, get inside the head of the character. And then I just started. And I'd been to the library, and I'd been through 1972, the entire year, Glasgow Herald. So to find out what was happening in the world then, what was happening in Glasgow then, what was on the telly, what kind of cars were people driving, how much did a house cost, all that. And then I got an old street map of Glasgow from 1972. I just sat in my room and did it. And the greatest moment was when I got a handwritten letter from William McIlvanney's widow, who also had been in lockdown on her own. And she said, Ian, when I read the manuscript, you brought Willie back to me. I could feel him sitting beside me while I read it. And I just thought, well, that's it, job done. If she thinks I've captured the voice, I've done it. Yeah. And I don't care if it's a successful book or not. I've succeeded on the terms I set out. But I don't like collaboration. The reason I'm a novelist is I find it really hard to collaborate. Yeah. Like doing TV and film or even a play, I find it really hard to let other people have a say in what I'm doing. I'm a wee bit thrown that way.
You have a new book, Midnight in Blue, coming out, and it's out, I think it's at the 10th of October. So could you tell us what the inspiration is behind it, and what can the readers expect from this new instalment?
Well, the inspiration behind it was the previous Rebus novel had ended with him about to be sentenced in court. And you never found out at the end of that book if he was found guilty or not guilty. And I thought that's not a bad end to a series. But readers disagreed. They wanted to know what happened next. I thought, well, I really owe it to the fans to have a follow-up where we do find out what happened to him in the dock. So I thought, what happens to him? He's found guilty. So this 70-year-old ex-cop suddenly finds himself in jail, surrounded by people who hate him because he's an ex-cop. So he's in Saughton Jail in Edinburgh. And that's where the book is set.
Okay.
Now, one of the nice things about getting a tour of HMP Edinburgh, Saughton, was that I saw that Fife College has quite a lot of input there.
Yes.
They run the learning courses, and so you see Fife College signs up wherever you go. So that actually is in the book.
Yeah.
So Fife College gets a wee mention in the new book.
And how long do you think you'll take Rebus on? How long do you think this is
Every
going to keep
time I write
going?
a book, I think this is the last book.
Yeah.
And my wife is very keen that I slow write down / stop. So I'm out of contract now, and she's saying, do not sign another contract.
Okay.
Let's have some fun while we've still got use of our limbs and our brains.
It's a really good
Let's go off
idea.
and spend some of your money by travelling and having holidays and having fun.
And how was Athens, by the way?
Athens, I went to Athens for my birthday and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It
You
wasn't
looked like
too
you
hot.
had a good time. I was
It was
stalking
great.
you on thread, sorry.
The food was terrific, it's a hilly city, but it was lovely. We had a great time, and we always go running I go with a mate and our 2 wives, and we go running. So on my birthday, we run my age, and then his birthday's the day after me, so we run his age. So we did 6.4 kilometres on my birthday because I was 64. Next day he was 65. We did 6.5 kilometres.
Wow.
And the 6.5 we ran around the old Olympic Stadium, which was just,
Yeah.
you pay €10 to go in and you can do what the hell you want.
Yeah.
So we ran around it.
Amazing.
It was just great.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, we had a good time. Good time in Athens.
Well, anyway, we just want to wish you the best of luck when the book comes out in October.
Also, play in September.
Okay.
There's a Rebus stage play, sadly not coming to Kirkcaldy, or indeed Fife. Not this run, but it is playing Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen.
Okay.
And it's Rebus, a game called Malice, which again was written during lockdown.
Yeah.
I got a lot of writing done during lockdown. Top tip, if you want to be a writer, go somewhere where there's a pandemic.
That's you set for the next 10 years then. But thank you so much again, and good luck with Rebus, and good luck with the book. And it's been an absolute honour to talk to you today. Thank you so much,
No,
Ian.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.